Hi, so it's been a while since I've done my last video. The last video I did was on jealousy. If this is your first time watching my videos, I'm actually making a series of videos for a ministry I'm trying to get started to help women who have been in abusive relationships or are currently in an abusive relationship to get out and stay out of these relationships. And an abusive relationship I talked about in my last video, jealousy, please watch it. And also watch the other videos that I have on my YouTube channel, which is Victorious in Him times 10. And the times is actually an X, so it's Victorious in Him X 10. So if you check out my channel, you'll see all the other videos that I've done addressing an abusive relationship, which is like a web of deception, which is what I talked about in my video about jealousy. And in the web of deception, there are certain anchors that will keep you in the relationship or pull you back in if you try to get out. The next anchor that I'm going to talk about today is actually isolation. And isolation kind of goes hand in hand with jealousy, which I spoke about before. Isolation is a tactic an abuser uses to keep somebody in a relationship, or they might actually target somebody who looks isolated, maybe like they don't have a lot of friends or family or a good support system. People in those situations will be targets for abuse. It's completely unfair and horrible. This is the world we live in, but this is the reality. And I urge everybody to have a good social support network, not just to stay out of abusive relationships, but also to have a good quality of life. And when you're in a relationship, you need to realize that you're not in a relationship in a vacuum. Relationships exist pretty much in relation with a lot of other people too. When you get into a relationship, it's going to affect everybody around you. It's going to affect your friends. It's going to affect his friends. And when I say yours and his, basically in my ministry, like I said before, I'm trying to help women who have been in abusive relationships. So I am going to talk from a perspective of a woman. This can be, pretty much applied across the board, but just so you know, I am going to be talking about the perspective of a woman in a relationship with a man. So, ministry that I'm doing, basically just relationships, they're going to affect everybody around you. They're going to affect onlookers. They're going to affect people you're already in relationships with. They're going to affect everybody you come into contact with. And a relationship that is existing in a vacuum or existing in isolation is not normal. It's just not how the course of things go. So if you're in a relationship and it seems kind of isolated, maybe your support system has kind of started to taper off and you have less and less contact with your friends and family, that could be something that is obvious to you because the man that you're in a relationship with has told you to stop talking to certain people or has set up the dynamic of the relationship, which eventually led to you not keeping in contact with people as much. But it's not a normal occurrence. It's actually something that's done selfishly on the part of one or two people to try to isolate their relationship. Relationships should be fun. They should be held out in the open. There's nothing to hide. There's no reason to have a secret relationship. But you have to know that some people will purposefully try to isolate you in a relationship in order to keep you from leaving the relationship and to have control over you so that they can abuse you. And a lot of times abusive relationships isn't really about abuse. It's about control. I do a video really getting into detail on this. It's called Power. Please watch it. Just talking about the power dynamics of an abusive relationship and why these occur. The main reason is power, and power is actually the foundation of the web of deception with all the anchors that keep somebody in an abusive relationship. I like in my ministry, it's a ministry. So I'm doing this from a biblical perspective. So I did want to bring up a Bible verse that talks about isolation. It's Proverbs 18:1. And it says, whoever isolates himself seeks his own. I'm sorry, let me start over. Whoever isolates himself seeks his own desire. Now that might sound good, but in reality, if you read different versions, like this is the English Standard Version. If you read like the New International Version, it says whoever isolates himself is being selfish. So seeking his own desire, being selfish, it's the same thing. And it says he breaks out against all sound judgment. And being in isolation will do that to you. If you research what happens to people when they're put into solitary confinement in prison, you'll see how they describe it as, you know, they go crazy, they hallucinate, they just really lose touch with reality, because God created us for relationships. He created us as social creatures. So when you're isolated, your sense of reality will completely be distorted, and that is another anchor that keeps somebody in an abusive relationship that I'll do another video on, getting more into depth with that. But a lot of things that keep women in these abusive relationships is sense of reality being distorted. And that did happen to me in the abusive relationship I was in, where my reality got so distorted because I got more and more isolated in this relationship with this guy, to where I didn't think he was abusing me anymore. But when I would talk to my friends or my family and they'd ask certain things, what are you doing today? Or, you know, how's the relationship going? And I'll just let them know just the facts. It wasn't like I was complaining. I'm just letting them know the facts. And they would say, wow, you need to get out of that relationship immediately. This is an abusive situation. This is not good. This is not healthy. If he's doing this, this is what that means. And that was good, because I needed people to tell me that. When you're in a relationship, you don't see it, I guess, completely clearly because you're in it. It's different being in a relationship versus being the observer, because when you're in the relationship, you're emotionally invested, but the observer is not. So the observer is going to see everything for what it is, but the person in it is not, mainly because of love, because of the feelings they have for them, and because they're not going to have the 360-degree fishbowl view that an observer is going to have. So a red flag in a relationship is if your friends or family think that the guy that you're with or thinking of getting with is not a good guy. They are usually right on target. I have another example of something that happened to me recently. And this was a relationship. Well, it wasn't a relationship. It was just a prospect of somebody that I would see around at work all the time. And he was expressing interest in me, and I was also interested in him. And I was, you know, it took a while because I was kind of laying low and observing him and seeing if I liked him. Everything I saw about this guy, I liked. And I just kept thinking, the more I saw him, the more I liked him. I have my standards and what I'm looking for in somebody who's potentially somebody I would date, and he met all of them. And I would just kind of bring it up to friends or family about the situation, and some people would say, you better make sure he doesn't have a wife or girlfriend. And I didn't understand why they were saying this, but he would express interest to me, but he hadn't asked me out. And that was a big reason why people were thinking that he had a wife or girlfriend. So I kind of took it upon myself to find out for sure, because I didn't want to keep having interest in somebody who has a girlfriend or wife. I need to guard my heart and protect my emotions. So we were actually headed to work one day. We were just walking together to work and having a good conversation. He asked where I worked, like exactly like what department, and I told him, and he said, oh, I should come see you sometime. And I said, I'm going to breakfast later if you're interested. And he said he couldn't go, but why don't we go to lunch instead? So this is just a harmless two colleagues pretty much going to lunch, even though we weren't really colleagues. We worked in the same building and for the same company. So we went to lunch, and as we were going to lunch and talking and everything, more and more about him kind of met the standards I was looking for, and we were really compatible, had a lot in common, it was really good. He's Christian, and I mean, I wasn't letting my heart or emotions get involved too much yet because I needed to find out everything I need to know. The ages were compatible. Everything was so compatible. And so while we were sitting there having lunch, he asked me if I was married, and I said no. And I asked him if he was married, and he said no, but he wants to be married and he wants to have a family. Then I proceeded to ask him if he had a girlfriend, and he said, yeah, something like that, but it's not really working out, and I think we're going to break up soon. So needless to say, we won't be going out again. And I expressed how I thought it was wrong. And of course, he thought we were just friends going out and didn't see anything wrong with it. But clearly, if two people who are attracted to each other are going out and one person is attached, either by marriage or, you know, is in a committed relationship, that's not the right thing to do. So my friends and family did have good insight on that, telling me, you better make sure he has a wife or girlfriend, because I honestly never would have guessed that he did. So, and that's not something I blame myself for at all. I really don't know how I would have known otherwise. I mean, I try to be open and not assuming the worst of people right away, but also looking for things, for red flags. And that's how you find out. I mean, you bring everything up on the table, put everything on the table right away, and set your boundaries. So my boundaries didn't allow me to get further involved with this guy, whereas in the past, when I didn't really have any boundaries, I might have gotten further involved with this guy and it wouldn't have been a good situation. So a really just important thing in life, like I want to reiterate, just to have a good quality of life, is to have a good social support networking system. Everybody's got different situations. Some people don't have any family members, some people don't have any friends, some people don't have either one. However, you can find that. You can find friends. You can find a good social support networking system. What I suggest is the best place to find that would be a Bible-believing church. And not every Bible-believing church is going to have good people there. You know, I mean, it's always a risk getting involved and having relationships with people, but it's so essential. So it's important that you put your best foot forward and meet people and find people who have your best interest at heart, and just form that social networking system for yourself. Because if you don't have that in place, it's going to be really easy for you to get into an abusive relationship and to stay in the abusive relationship. Because not just because you don't have the 360-degree view of what's going on, but also because having a good social support network is essential for your well-being, and it's going to make you feel like you have another step to put your feet on, which is going to lead you out of a bad relationship or out of a bad situation easier, because you're going to be more well emotionally adjusted by having a good group of friends and people who have your best interests at heart. So definitely be aware if you're in a relationship where your contacts, your friends, your family is kind of being cut off, you're not keeping in touch as much, that's a red flag to look out for. I'm not saying that people have to be involved in your relationship, but don't go through your relationship in a vacuum. It's okay to have people around you. It's okay to talk about certain things about your relationship with people. Now, some things in the relationship should just be kept between you and that person, of course, but not everything. Not everything. And you should not have to stop talking to your friends or family in order to be in a relationship. If you're in a relationship with a man of character, he's not going to make you cut off those relationships. He's probably going to encourage it because he has your best interest at heart and he wants you to be happy. And he's going to want what's best for you. And that's to make sure that you're taken care of by having a good network of friends and family members and other people who can add value to your life. Thank you so much for listening. I'm going to be loading more videos. The next one is probably going to be on addressing onlookers of abusive relationships. I'm also going to be talking about singleness. I'm going to be talking about so many different things that have to do with relationships, not just abusive relationships, but relationships in general, because this is a part of trying to help people get into good functioning relationships also. So I want to add a positive to the negative of being in an abusive relationship. The positive is getting into good functioning healthy relationships. As God leads and God provides the wisdom, I will be doing these videos and continuing to work on my book. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a blessed day, and we'll see you for the next video. Take